Hello, and welcome to Running on Carbs podcast. I'm your host, Coach Val, and I would like to welcome you to today's episode. We are in episode number 42, and you might have seen from our title today, we have a new series that I am starting with the podcast. So I really hope you enjoy it. This is our first of several to come. They're not exactly scheduled out episodes, but I would like to spotlight some really important uh, foods that are valuable to our plant based runners. And so today I thought I'd start off with the powerhouse superpower food, kale. And we'll this will be our first deep dive, but these episodes are really going to, just spotlight one food and really just take a deep dive into it and talk about the nutritional value of that food and its impact and how it supports plant-based runners. And so, kale is my favorite vegetable, I think. Or one of them. I think beets are right up there with kale, but I eat kale every single morning. My philosophy is get your greens in first thing in the day. So you make sure that you get them in. And then, bonus if you get more throughout the day. But I always get in my kale first thing in the morning with breakfast. And so today I thought, let's talk about kale. And so that's what we're gonna do today. I hope you enjoy it. If you want me to spotlight other foods that are your favorite foods or ones that you're curious about, then jump over to Instagram. I always put a post on Instagram for promoting the podcast episode. So just go to that post and then in the comments, give me the food that you want me to highlight next or in a future episode. So, or of course, you could always send me a message. But I think just dropping a note in the comments below that post will be the easiest way. And then I can keep track of what it is that you want me to share. So let's talk about some food. Before we talk about some food, though, I do want to talk a little bit about a book that I released just recently. It's an ebook, and that book is also all focused on plant-based nutrition. Specifically, it's plant-based meal prep for runners. So, if you are new to this way of eating, this plant-based lifestyle, and you're a runner, or if you're just athletic and you like listening to this podcast and you want to get some meal prep ideas, then that ebook has a lot of information. It's very practical. It's a very short ebook. It's not a long, like 300-page book or anything, but it's a very practical ebook, just like this podcast is. And I try to give you actionable steps to take throughout your day to make you a healthier, stronger, plant-based individual and runner. And so that ebook is really focused on that style as well. So I lay out 10 essential tips for meal prepping for plant-based runners. And so it's available through a couple of ways. So you can download it through Amazon for your Kindle, and it's available on Kindle Unlimited right now. So if you have Kindle Unlimited, then it's included in your subscription, or it's available for purchase if you just want to own the book. And it's a very nominal fee at the moment. Or if you simply don't want to pay for that and you don't read on a Kindle, then there is a PDF download option that is totally completely free. And so I'll put both of those links in the show notes that you can go and check out and take a look at that. It's the book is called Meals That Move You. And it's like I said, super simple, quick read, but lots of actionable steps in there. Share it with a friend who might be starting this journey, even if you've already gone down the road and you're well into it. Let's see, the next thing I wanted to share also, by the way, and so there's links in the bio to that, but I also have a link tree. So any links that I talk about in this episode are all in the link tree. So if you don't want to hunt around for a link, you can go to one source, the link tree. And in Linktree, there's it's organized in like a grid in a row that you can just go to what you're looking for, and it has little pictures so you can know what it is you're looking for. find the information really quickly. So there's a shortcut for you. Another efficiency shortcut. I'm full of them. Okay, so if you are starting up your running journey for the year and you need a new planner, I have also written a running journal planner, which I am really excited about. I mean, I'm excited about all of the projects that I'm doing right now, but I truly love my running journal that I created because it's what I use in my regular running life. And now there's a journal, there's a book that I also have for myself. And that I'm getting a lot of really positive feedback on. So I'm so pleased to see that other runners are enjoying the book, using the book, and it's it's useful for them. So if you like that paper pen feel of a book, and by the way, this book, I have a matte cover on it on this running journal, and it just feels good. It's like very velvety, matte cover. So if you're a very tactile person like I am, where you love the touch of and feel of a book, you'll really like the cover on this book. But that also is available on Amazon. That is a physical book. That is not an ebook. So you can fill that out and track all your runs and important stats and everything that goes along with it. I've talked about it in lots of episodes, but go to the link, check it out, see if you like it. And then lastly, I have a really fun running related notebook. I actually have two of them that I created. And so if you like just to have a fun notebook, then these are for you. So if you're on YouTube, I'll show a picture of it. I'll hold it up. But otherwise, again, go to the link, look at it on Amazon. But the first book that I have here, it is just a lined journal, but it has cute little doodle faces inside. But the title, the front cover, says "Introverted but willing to discuss running," and it's a very cute book. So anyway, and then here's the back of the book. So anyway, if you like running or just having a nice lined journal around the house, then that's a fun one to have or to give as a gift to another runner. And then the other one that I created is more inspirational and pretty. So it has a beautiful mountain and lake picture on the front. And it says, "All things come to she who hustles while she waits." And this is a very meaningful saying to me. And it again has, a pretty little design on the inside as well as the lined pages. But that saying, my grandfather used to tell me, "All things come to he who hustles while he waits." And I've talked about this saying in the podcast. So if you've been a long time listener, you might have heard me mention this saying before. And I really have lived by that motto all of my life. And if you break down what that means, if you're kind of confused by it, what that means, at least to me and how I was raised on that saying, it means that even when you're in challenging times, when it seems like nothing is happening and that you are, that you just nothing is coming in your life and you're just stagnant, that if you continue to work toward your goals, if you continue to just take action, then those things that you want most will come to you. And so that is the hustle part. And the waiting part is while you're waiting for all of your work to pay off and to show fruition, to, or come to fruition, you are doing something, you're taking action. And as far as like running is concerned, I feel like first of all, that's a personal motto of mine, just in my life as a whole. But when it comes to running, it's very relevant as well because when you are trying to work toward a running goal, you might feel like I'm doing all this work and I'm not getting faster. If speed is your goal, I'm not getting faster. You continue to work on it day by day by day. You're hustling while you're waiting for the results to happen, but you're not giving up. You're not stopping. You keep going, and that can be true of endurance, of distance. You have maybe a roadblock at a certain mileage. You keep working toward that goal, and it might take you a long time to get past that mileage or to reduce your heart rate so that you're not quite, your heart rate isn't spiking on your runs. You might need to take it back, but you continue to move, you continue to hustle. So for me, the saying on the front of that book is very meaningful. And maybe that helps to make it a little more meaningful to you as well. When I share that saying, you'll know really what I'm talking about. So again, all those links are in the link tree and in the show notes. So anyway, I hope you enjoy those and let me know if you do. And of course, reviews on Amazon are always welcome. Honest feedback, whatever that might be. And as well as honest feedback for this podcast. Although I hope you give this podcast 5 stars because we really want to grow. So, all right, so let's get on to the episode. Let's talk about kale. And yes, I'm very excited to talk about kale. I don't know if you can hear that in my voice, but I am. So, kale and its many qualities. What is kale? Number one, kale. First of all, I looked it up and I was curious. When did kale come into the United States and when did it really become popular? Because I feel like when I was growing up, I didn't hear anything about kale. Nobody talked about kale. Well, kale came over in like early 19th century from, oh God, I can't even remember where it came from. But anyway, it came to the United States, early 19th century. But it didn't really gain a lot of popularity though. Like we see it around now, like it's in every grocery store and things like that. That really didn't happen until the 1990s. That's really when kale's popularity exploded. And it's really maintained its popularity ever since then. Um, there are 150 known varieties of kale, although we really only consume a very small number of those. And if you were to go to a grocery store in the US, you're only going to find a handful of kale species probably there. The most popular would be your curly kale, which is your just basic green kale. They call that curly kale. There is a red kale and lacinato, which is also referred to as dinosaur kale. That's the one that's like a long, skinny stalk that's kind of real bumpy, like dinosaur skin. And then blue kale. So those are really the primary kales that you find in your standard grocery store. I'm sure there's places where you can find more unique varieties or farmers markets. There could be some specialty farmers around the country that sell more specialty type kales. But those are going to be your basics, your standards. But you know what? Basic and standards, they're all the same as far as like high nutritional quality. So whatever kale you can get your hands on, I think by the end of this episode, you're going to be headed to the grocery store or getting online for your grocery order and adding kale to your cart. At least I hope so. So kale is considered a dark green leafy vegetable, and it's in the cruciferous family. And the cruciferous family includes things like broccoli and Brussels sprouts. So they're very healthy in lots of different ways, and they're kind of a different family from your other vegetables. They separate them out as far as like types of vegetables are concerned. The nutrient makeup of kale, one serving is considered 2 cups. So 2 cups of kale would be one serving. And there's 72 calories in that 2 cups. And there are 5 grams of protein in that 2 cups of kale. So whenever someone might ask you, where do you get your protein? Which I know plant-based and vegans love that question. Next time they ask you that, you can say, I get it from my kale and just shock them all. Um, but 5 grams of protein is nothing to sneeze at. There's 1 gram of fat, but obviously we need our fat, so don't be afraid of fat. But 1 gram is not significant either, so it's not really a high source of fat. And carbohydrates, there's only 15 grams of carbohydrates, so it's not really going to be your high carb vegetable. Green leafy vegetables typically aren't. And then as far as fiber is concerned, which is obviously very important for a number of reasons, especially our gut health, there's 5 grams of fiber. So what are the health benefits of kale? There are a lot of them. And honestly, this is going to be sort of very high level with regard to the health benefits. Even though this is a real deep dive into kale, it can't go that deep because we would be here all day long. I could probably do an entire like 2-hour presentation on the nutritional aspects of kale and all of its impact. But we really want to stick to how is it beneficial for overall health and performance as a runner. So those are the two areas that I'm really focused on today. First of all, health benefit of kale. Um, it reduces cardiovascular disease risk, and cardiovascular disease is, one of the top killers of people, especially women, in the United States. So we really need to be aware and conscious of any health bumps we can give ourselves to protect ourselves from these lifestyle diseases, um, and also hereditary diseases as well. The more healthy we can be, the more we can maybe ward off some of those genes that we were given. It contains lutein and I forgot to look up how to say this word. Zeaxanthin. Oh my god, I can't say that word. Um, Anyway, it's, Zeaxanthin. Oh my gosh. I forgot to look up how to say that word. Anyway, it contains these, compounds, these antioxidants and carotenoid pigments. Okay, that's what they are, and they protect the eyes, and, they protect the eyes from oxidative stress. Now, oxygen is great in a lot of different ways, but too much oxygen, can cause, um oxidative stress, kind of like metal will rust. So it's the same concept. Our bodies can rust from the inside out, in so to speak. And so these are very protective qualities for the eyes, or compounds for the eyes. And they can help protect the eyes from damage caused by that oxygen. And that oxygen could lead to things like macular degeneration, cataracts, and even glaucoma. My grandfather suffered with macular degeneration, and so did my father-in-law. And so I've seen the effects of that disease on a human life, and they're devastating. So anything that we can do to protect our eyes, I mean, our eyes are, as they say, the window to the world. So anything we can do to protect our eyes, there's no guarantees in life, but if you can do something as simple as eating a couple of cups of kale to improve your chances, then I'm going to share with you some ways that you can make it palatable and so that you can enjoy it and still get the health benefits from your kale. So, for endurance athletes, obviously eyesight is very important, but not all, be all end all. But for endurance athletes, as far as performance is concerned, kale contains things that are necessary, things like electrolytes. So potassium, magnesium, calcium, very high in these electrolytes. Potassium is very important because it helps to regulate the water in the body, and that obviously directly impacts muscle contraction. So, if you do not have proper water in the body, then your muscles cannot properly contract. What happens then? Ooh, muscle cramps. So, we definitely don't want muscle cramps. Magnesium is the other one. And magnesium protects against muscle damage and also assists with repair. So, repair after hard workouts. Magnesium also helps to maintain a normal heart rhythm, and that can impact blood pressure. And it also helps to maintain bone integrity and assists with calcium absorption. I personally take a magnesium supplement. However, I try to get as much as I can from my food. But with my history of a bone stress fracture, I also, supplement to ensure that I have that extra assistance. Not to say that you should do that. Nothing in this episode is should constitute any type of nutritional advice directly for your health or your day-to-day life, because you are individual and I have not spoken with you directly, so I do not know your whole health history, and I am not a dietitian. So you want to make sure that if you want to supplement anything, that you talk with a sports dietitian or a doctor or someone that can know your overall health history and give you proper guidance and advice on that. But when it comes to eating foods, typically, unless you know you have another health issue, typically eating certain foods can give you, lots of health benefits with very low risk. But always, always take into consideration your own health history and your own circumstances. If you know you can't be eating leafy greens for some health reason, if you have a vitamin K, issue or something that you have to be concerned with, as an example, then obviously don't eat lots of kale if that is not going to be healthy for you. But those things are rare. So in a general sense, kale is extremely healthy and is, something that most of the population can eat, although very few actually eat kale. So in the United States, kale is one of those foods that's very underutilized, although it's very popular and it's gained a lot of popularity. It's not one of those foods that is in high consumption compared to other foods like romaine lettuce or even spinach, which we're going to get to spinach. Don't you worry. All right, so back to the electrolytes, calcium. It also includes a lot of calcium, which is great. That's one of the benefits of eating green leafy vegetables is the calcium content that you get from those vegetables. And calcium will assist with bone health, as we know, muscle contraction. It also plays a role in heart health by maintaining normal heart rate and blood pressure. And it also plays a role in blood clotting and nerve transmissions between the body and the brain. Calcium is one of those things that is the unsung hero in many stories when it comes to bodily functions. So, calcium is very important. Um, Kale is also rich in a lot of different antioxidants. Antioxidants, for example, would be like vitamin C. I mentioned vitamin K, beta carotene. So there are a lot of great antioxidants in kale as well that you can get. It also, in one serving of kale, that 2 cups that I mentioned, there's nearly 3 milligrams of iron. So if that is something that you need, that you realize that you need to increase or maintain certain levels, and you don't want to supplement because supplementation of iron leads to so many other potential side effects. Kale has about 3 milligrams of iron in just one serving. So it's a nice option for that. Kale also has an anti-inflammatory plant compounds for things like recovery and repair of the body. So it's great for recovery. Green leafy vegetables like kale, they also are associated with stamina. And boy, as endurance athletes, don't we need stamina? Whether you are swimming, biking, running, rowing, whatever endurance activity you are doing, we need that stamina. uh, because it is a green leafy vegetable, it's also an excellent source of chlorophyll, which is energy boosting. It it boosts energy because it neutralizes that oxidative stress and free radicals that can come with your training, and it also may increase blood production, and that can improve cell oxygenation. I actually have been personally taking chlorophyll for a number of years, and I have noticed a real difference in as far as I guess you could say as far as energy. I have used it for that recovery for many years, and I take it along with my turmeric. So it was recommended to me by my acupuncturist a number of years ago when I started seeing her, and I never would have thought about chlorophyll at the time. But you can get it naturally from things like green leafy vegetables like kale. So you don't have to supplement. You can get it from your food, which is the best way, of course, to get our nutrients. Okay, so let's talk about the downsides of green leafy vegetables sometimes. Now, kale doesn't have a huge downside, but we do have to talk about oxalates because whenever we're talking about green leafy vegetables, oxalates come with those vegetables. And oxalates can impact kidney function, and they can lead to all sorts of health complications, including kidney stones. And sometimes, even worse than that, some very bad cases of like extreme cases of high oxalates in people's bodies where it shuts down their kidneys. But those are very extreme and unique cases. There's usually some other underlying factors that go along with it that cause that health issue. I do have a link to a couple of videos, by the way, where some of this information came from. I always like to cite my resources if I can. And so I put links to a couple of nutritionfacts.org videos and stories in the show notes. So if you want to delve into some of this information deeper, then I highly recommend that you watch those videos. Very interesting stuff and explained much more thoroughly from that Dr. Greger's perspective than I could ever give it justice to. But I'm giving you the highlights here from some of it so that you can go watch those videos. But I want to talk about the differences between spinach and kale. So, kale has a lot lower oxalates than spinach, like considerably. If so, when I first started eating green leafy vegetables in the morning, I actually did not start with kale. I started with baby spinach. I used to buy a massive bag from Costco and I would have spinach throughout the day. I'd have spinach salads for lunch. I'd put spinach in my tofu to make like a tofu scramble with some spinach and mushrooms and tomatoes, which is still nice to do sometimes. But I was having spinach probably 2 to 3 times a day. I didn't realize the amount of oxalates that I was putting into my body. Thankfully, I don't seem to be prone to kidney stones, although I do have family members who are and have been. And I know that they're extremely painful. So I feel very fortunate that I didn't cause myself any kidney stones at the time that I was doing it. But kale, I found out, has much, much lower levels of oxalates than spinach does. So, for example, 1 cup of raw spinach contains 656 milligrams of oxalates. Compare that to 1 cup of raw kale, which has 2 milligrams. Let that sink in. 656 compared to 2. That's a big difference. So when I learned this information, I immediately switched to kale in the morning. And now I enjoy baby spinach, but not nearly as often as I used to. So that is something for you to consider as you move forward. And so one of the questions is, okay, well, what about cooking it? Can we, reduce the oxalates in the spinach if we cook it? And even cooking high oxalate greens, and so high oxalate greens include things like spinach, beet greens, which is another one that I used to really eat a lot, and chard. So those are the three really high oxalate greens. And cooking them doesn't reduce their oxalate levels significantly enough to really make a positive impact. It does somewhat. And again, in that video, it gives real specifics about how much the study showed that the oxalates dropped by, but it wasn't significant enough. And it certainly didn't reach the levels of kale. So, for example, on kale, if you would have to eat 125 cups of kale, 125 cups to equal the oxalate levels of just a little less than half a cup of spinach. That is humongous. So, if oxalates are a concern for you, especially if you have any type of family history of kidney stones and things like that, then it is something absolutely to consider in your overall health. And so, maybe switching out that baby spinach for kale might be a good idea. All right, so how do we eat kale for optimum nutrition? Because we obviously are looking for optimal nutrition in this case. So we want to absorb as much of that good stuff as we can. And raw kale can be kind of hard to digest. When I eat raw kale, I will usually mix it in with something else. It's also a bit bitter. So, unlike spinach that has more of a mild flavor, raw kale tough, it's very fibrous, and it's kind of hard to chew. And it is kind of bitter when it's just straight up raw kale. Cooking can damage the antioxidants, though. So you kind of got this like balance because raw, you're going to get all these great health benefits from it. But if you were to cook it, you can easily kill off your valuable vitamin C. So what's a gal to do? Steaming seems to be the optimal way to cook kale because steaming is a very low temperature, so you don't kill off the same amount of the antioxidants as you would like boiling it, um, or if you're cooking it at some other high temperature, like in a pan or something. So steaming is really the best way to get the most out of your kale, um, without having it be like eating grass off the ground. So, another way to get as much nutrients out of your kale is to pair it with a fat because many of the nutrients in kale are fat soluble, which means that we need to use fat to absorb them. So, you want to get those fat soluble vitamins by pairing it with a fat. So, avocado is a great fat to pair it with, or any type of nut or seed. So, if you want to sprinkle on some sunflower seeds on your steamed kale, way to go. To maximize the calcium benefits in kale, it's recommended that you don't eat calcium-rich foods for a couple of hours within the time frame of consuming your kale. This can kind of be hard to do sometimes, but obviously, this is about optimum nutrition, not perfect nutrition. So I know that in the morning I will often do my steamed kale, and then I always eat that first, and then I'll go on to the rest of my breakfast, which will be like maybe a tofu scramble. Well, there's a lot of calcium in the tofu, so I might not be pulling out all the calcium from my kale because I have the calcium in the tofu. But again, nutrition is more about overall, like what are you doing throughout the day? What are you doing throughout the week? So we're looking for overall optimum nutrition, not just isolated moments in time and isolated foods. We're looking at the whole person, as I like to call it, the holistic nutrition, but I call it WHOLE for the whole person and the whole life and nutrition and how it fits into that. All right, so how do you enjoy your kale? How do you actually like what you're eating? I've got a couple of ways that you can prepare kale that you might like it more. If I'm assuming if you aren't really one that enjoys kale right now, or if you just want some new ways to enjoy kale, I got a couple tips for you. So, first off, is more common ways that I think people are already accustomed to enjoying kale, but there might be something in here that's new. So, one is, as I mentioned earlier, if you're going to have raw kale, mix it in with other salad fixings. Like, for instance, have your romaine lettuce and then tear up some kale and wash it all together, of course, and put it in a salad. And so you're not simply eating straight up, bowl full of kale, but it's sort of mixed in with the rest of your greens. Another way is to blend it up in a smoothie. This kind of helps with couple different things. Number one, you've kind of, when you blend something, you've sort of pre-digested it a little bit. And so when it goes into your system, you've already started that digestion process. So it might be a little bit easier on your system to digest the kale if it's already started because you blended it up. So that is, one way to enjoy some raw kale. And then another way is to steam it and then add it into your Buddha bowls. I love a good Buddha bowl, and greens in a Buddha bowl is so good. So try steaming it and just adding it as one of your ingredients in your bowl. Some less customary ways to enjoy kale, and some of these are ones that I have figured out along the way on my plant based journey. When I first started incorporating kale into my diet, I was trying to get creative, and I feel like I accomplished that. So, first off, this is not quite creative, but if your grocery store or your farmer's market has kale sprouts, oh boy, I highly recommend that. The At the sprouting point, of a vegetable, they are packed with nutrients in a tiny amount of food. So, take those sprouts and put them on salads or put them, on dishes, but leave them cold. Don't heat up sprouts because we want to keep all those nutrients that they have. But, all the nutrients in that big stalk are compact in that little tiny space in a sprout. And so you don't need a lot for it to go a long way, nutritionally speaking. So sprouts are a great thing to have if you can get access to kale sprouts. Another option, this is what I do every single morning. I may have mentioned this in other podcasts. I'm sure I probably have, but steam your kale and then drizzle it with a very high quality white balsamic lemon vinegar. This is what I eat every day. Every single day, I have about 2 cups, actually. I didn't really measure it out until I saw today that 2 cups is the serving. I'm like, "Well, that's perfect. That's pretty much what I eat every day." I measured it out by ounces originally. Now I just kind of tear apart 2 or 3 stalks of kale, wash them off, and toss them in the steamer. It's super simple. So, steaming, the kale is very easy. It all you need is a pot and then one of those little metal steamer baskets. It just drops in your pot. Don't forget to put water in your pot. So if you're kinda not a big cook or something and you haven't ever done this before, my son did that one time. I told him, "Just put the steamer basket in, put the kale in, and, steam it." I thought it was obvious that you had to put water in the pot. I should not have done that to a teenager. Of course they didn't he didn't know to put water. So, anyway, put water in the pot, then put the steamer basket in, put your torn up pieces of kale on top of the steamer basket, lid goes on, steam it for however long you like it, like however soft you like it. I usually do it somewhere between, and it's 2 cups, so I usually do somewhere between maybe 7, 8, 9 minutes, depending on how much kale is in there and how tough the kale is. So if it's like a really tough kale, I got the big leaves, then I might leave it for 9 minutes, but otherwise 8 minutes is about the average of how long I steam it for. That's it. I take it out, put it in a bowl, drizzle a couple teaspoons of that vinegar, that lemon vinegar on it. It's great. So try it out. Let me know what you think. I would love to hear your comments if you try this. But if you aren't used to eating kale and you do this, give yourself a couple weeks to get used to it because it is a different flavor if you're not used to eating kale. Okay, so that's mine. And so here's some more that I've learned over the years. Use steamed kale as a base. So, like instead of doing a starch, use steamed kale. And something that I've used it with is bean dishes. So I make what I call a sausage flavored bean. So it's like breakfast beans, and they have what you would normally season sausage with. So like it has fennel and pepper and rosemary. There's a couple other things, a couple other spices in there, um, and there's just a navy bean, a white bean, and I put those beans over the kale. So instead of putting it over rice or some other starch, I put it over kale. It's still absolutely delicious. And that is a meal in and of itself when you add beans. Another way to do steamed kale is to add mushrooms because mushrooms are another powerhouse food that we're probably going to have to do an episode on because there's too much fun stuff to talk about when it comes to mushrooms. But I sliced up, I haven't done it for a while, but I used to slice up shiitake mushrooms And then I would put chopped up tofu or tempeh or some sort of like, I would use what are they called? The soy curls that I get from their Butler's soy curls. They're just soybeans, dehydrated soybeans. So I would hydrate the soybean or the soy curls and put the shiitake mushrooms together and steam everything together in the pot. And then I would drizzle that with a little bit of Bragg's liquid aminos and sprinkle it with everything bagel seasoning. It's salty, so this is a good replenisher. If it's after a long run, you need to replenish your electrolytes and your sodium and that type of thing. That's a good post run meal because you're also getting the carbohydrates and you're also getting the protein. So that is a really good like post long run breakfast. And another thing you can do, my last suggestion is make your basil go farther if you're making a homemade pesto. So we all know that that those homemade pestos are wonderful, but basil can be pretty expensive, especially the fresh basil. So what you could do is get the fresh basil and blend it up with kale, so it'll make your basil and your pesto go a little farther. And you get all those health benefits of the kale. And again, you are blending it up. So you're starting the process of breaking down everything so it's not quite as hard on your digestive system. And then you probably will heat that up, I would imagine, in most cases. So, anyway, so there's a few ideas on how you can incorporate kale into your diet. And hopefully you enjoy that. And let me know if you try anything, because I really want to know what you try. And then if you have some new ideas for me, I could use them. So if you are a big kale fan also, and you have ways that you incorporate kale into your diet, will you please go over to Instagram and tell me? Because I need some new tips. These are like my standard go-tos that I've had for years. So I'm always looking for new stuff, and I could always use something new. So please share with me. Okay, that's all I've got for you today. I hope you've liked this deep dive into kale. Can you believe we talked for like a half an hour about kale? And I hope that you were intrigued by it and you came away with some fun ideas and things and learned something new about this interesting cruciferous vegetable. Please go and check out all the links and the videos that I shared as well. Nutritionfacts.org is such a great resource. So if you ever have any nutrition questions or just want to know more about certain nutritional, I don't know, compounds or studies, Dr. Greger has a great resource through nutritionfacts.org. All right, so check it all out. Let me know if you order the book because I'd love to know how that helps you on your journey. And in the meantime, we will see you next week for another episode on Thursday. All right. Have a great week, everybody. And don't forget, in the meantime, run your best life on carbs. I'm Coach Val, and I will see you next time. Take care.